I was living in Jerusalem, actually working as a journalist there. And I was reading the Jerusalem Post and I was just flipping through, and buried on an inside page was this tiny article that said opposition leader killed in Alberta plane crash. And I read down through this tiny little blurb, and at the bottom I see the name of one of the survivors, my father. So you can imagine it was just a heart-stopping event for me, and being so far away as well. It was a commuter plane that went from Edmonton up to northern communities in Alberta. The people on the plane, there were 10 people, including the pilot. The pilot hadn't wanted to fly that night because the weather wasn't great, but he felt the pressure to get in. So my dad was on, and there was a RCMP officer who was taking a prisoner in handcuffs to face sentencing in Grand Prairie. And so they were seated at the back of the plane. And a last minute entry who came in and took the co-pilot's seat was Grant Notley, Rachel Notley's father. The plane crashed into a high hill short of its destination. The survivors were my father, this criminal who had been uncuffed during the flight, the RCMP officer, and the pilot. And it was this drifter, he was the least hurt. He ended up saving the lives of the other survivors. I think that was this, to me, the real spark of this work, these dividing lines of power, economic kind of ability, and all of these things, and how in times of real tragedy, those dividing lines just are erased and people are just who they are. The first person I tracked down was the pilot. When I reached him, and he was trucking by then because he'd lost his pilot's license, it was like he had been waiting to tell his story. He unburdened himself, and I think he did say, "I've been waiting years for you," because he had just lived with this. He was a kid. He was 24. Rachel Notley. She and I were again in our 20s, and I really feel like there were these two mirrored lives, a woman whose father survived and a woman whose father did not. Her picking up the mantle of her father's career. I was delighted to see her take power. I remember Grant Notley. I remember being in the elevator going to visit my dad at the legislature. He was a really fine man, a really, really honorable politician. I reach out to the survivors. My dad did it every year, and so I picked up the mantle after he passed away. And so we stay in touch. I kind of just carry on.